everybody.
Yeah.
We're
going right into it.
We saw a lengthy demo that they have not released publicly. They did release an awesome long gameplay demo, which they showed at QuakeCon, which gives you a good idea of what the game is. We saw stuff beyond that. We spent 2 days asking a million questions. Cork, what did you think of your time seeing Prey?
I thought that game looked pretty cool.
Reeves?
I thought it looked really good too. I'm a big fan of Dishonored, the Dishonored series, and they said this, which I thought was striking, is like kind of what they tried to do for Dishonored was kind of like their version of Thief.
Right.
They're trying to do their version of System Shock with Prey.
Prey seems very much like a game that a certain subset of people are going to lose their minds over. It seems tailor-made for, I think on the trip, the phrase that came to mind was a gamer-ass game for gamers. Just systems heavy. It's a space station riddled with aliens. At a certain point, you can just have free reign over the space station, go outside, float in, find new access points. The Metroid comparisons have been made.
Right.
NeoGAF seem to be running with that System Shock meets Super Metroid comparison.
To be fair, your house is like Metroid. If you think about it, you have your keys with you. Suddenly, all these different doors are available to you. So let's not overemphasize the importance of Metroid.
No, my apartment is a Metroidvania. I agree. Yeah.
I have a lot of trouble just getting past why is this game called Prey?
Why? What do you mean?
Okay, so you're joking, but I think it's just really strange because it's not like this game has a tie to the previous Prey franchise, right?
No.
But it's also like, it's not that Prey that had a sequel that then got canceled. So there's just been that one Prey game that came out like 10 years ago. It's not like this is a juggernaut IP that has all of this sort of loyalty behind it. Like, I imagine that you're just losing more than you're gaining by putting it on there.
Like they could have called this anything. Is what you're saying.
Because you called it, I think they should have called this something else based on what I've I've read Jeff's cover story and stuff. I just don't get it.
I think ultimately what comes down to, and I talked to Pete Hines from Bethesda about this, is like they are in a position where, as a publisher, they have the rights to the name Prey. And incidentally, whether or not you're thinking about the baggage that accompanies that game and the IP, Prey is just a good name for a game. And I think it sums up, they're saying that it sums up what the game is about, where there's a relationship, a prey hunter position kind of thing going on in the space station. And
I think to get down on the ground, realistically, what it felt like from visiting that studio is this game is not connected to the old Prey. It's not connected to the Prey 2, which the comment section, since we revealed the cover story, has informed me that they really wanted that human head Prey 2.
Apparently.
There's a lot more animosity towards that than I imagined. But realistically, the sense that I got is like Arkane wanted to make a game like Arx Fatalis, their old game from 2002. They wanted to make a game that they called their space dungeon game, where it's like, hey, you're in space, you're in a confined space. And it seemed like it's just a case of developer and publisher meeting each other halfway. Like, hey, you want to do something crazy? Okay, we own this Prey name. That's going to lead to probably X number more pre-orders because people are familiar with the name and it's some level of brand recognition. Let's just combine these two. But Arkane does not want to even really discuss the other Prey because it's not a love letter to that old game or anything like that. And Raph, the creative director down there, he had an interesting take where he's like, well, movies, every 10 years, a new movie can come out with the same name and no one complains about it. Why can't games do the same? So they're very much trying to position this as a new IP, just a frustrating new IP that uses the name of that other game that it's not connected to at all.
Yeah, and I feel like gamers probably have longer memories than moviegoers when it comes. Like, no one's going to be confused by a movie when that happens. But like IPs are so front and center when it comes to video games that I just don't understand. I just don't get it. I think it is a bad idea.
It's led to more confusion, I'm sure, than they would like. But
especially because even like you said, there'll be more pre-orders if we call it Prey. No, there won't. Who remembers Prey that well?
So then I think
especially when you factor in if you do give it a different name, I think that there's more enthusiasm that will swell up among people who would have recognized Prey if you just call it something new and try and sell it as like, hey, here's a new IP.
Totally. Somewhere there's a spreadsheet within Bethesda headquarters, ZeniMax space station out there floating around the planet, where they crunched the numbers and realized we're going to do better and make a bigger splash if we call this Prey. Who knows if it's the right call? But the team is very much positioning this as something new. I feel like this game is really interesting, and I don't think the industry is paying enough attention to it for how interesting and weird it is.
I mean, you were won over by the second you heard that you could turn into a coffee cup, though, right? Like that
After, when Reiner was on this podcast, I had no idea. I was part of the uninformed masses that had no idea that this game was so weird that you can turn into a coffee cup and jump around like a character from Beauty and the Beast.
Which I imagine like this like crazy like Toy Story kind of like dumb animated thing, which looks hokey, but like when you're playing the game, like the game's kind of dark and moody and serious.
And then
right?
there's this Toy Story character
Yeah,
jumping
exactly.
around.
Well,
but
so
it works, and somehow it's weird and goofy, but it works and it's fun, and it opens up a lot of like opportunities for you like to turn into a small thing and just slip through a crack in a door that you couldn't normally get through. Like it's cool. And
can you give me more examples like that? I'm curious
Yeah.
because like from what Ben just said and what Reeves and then what Hanson was saying before, like you talk about crazy possibilities sort of spiraling out. Like what kinds of stuff can you do? What like that gets you
Let's
so
go
excited?
with just the mimic alien alone, which is, basically the head crab that you encounter early on. It's this alien type, and then you learn to use the ability to mime things. And they say you can become anything that's not bolted down. You can't become like other humans. You can become a robot. You can become a turret. You can become a roll of toilet paper and roll down the hallway, which I'm sure
Unroll
you're
yourself.
into. There is a weird... I know Cork's going to make fun of me for being so into this, but I thought it was awesome. You enter this room, right, in the demo that we saw, and there's a little stage with instruments on it. So it's got like a keyboard, drums, a guitar, a bass. You can mimic any instrument. You can mimic like a guitar and then just sit there as a guitar on the stage. And there's also an alien called the Poltergeist, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit here. But he just he's invisible and he kind of rattles stuff. So it's conceivable that you can become a guitar on a stage and then another alien can play you, not realizing that it's you. Because he just interacts with the different objects in the room.
Okay.
For those of you who aren't watching the video feed,
Yeah.
Joe's jaw just dropped off the ground and he looked very excited.
like a cartoon wolf.
Right.
Well, no, I guess so. What I'm having trouble understanding is like, okay, so you turn into something.
Yeah.
Does this work? So let's say the room's full of aliens and you turn into a guitar.
Yeah.
Is that like effective camouflage?
Yes.
Or is it like, are you in an empty room and like, oh, I'm going to turn into that guitar. And then you just sit there inert as a guitar for 5 minutes waiting for an alien to wander into the room and
Oh,
play
wouldn't
you.
that be fun? I mean, come on. No, it's an active camouflage thing. So you might be running from enemies, run around a corner, turn into something like a guitar or coffee mug or whatever,
Right.
chair, and then they come around the corner and they're like, "Oh, where'd he go?" I mean, they don't
Better
talk
play
like
the
that.
guitar for a while.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a good way to like hide. And I think they said something about you couldn't be hurt when you're an object, right?
You get knocked out of it.
You can get knocked out of being that object if you get hit hard enough.
Okay.
Right.
But you're also sort of immune to damage in that state.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's another simple example of if there's an alien hiding up, this is an example Ricardo Bear, the lead designer, used, but if there's like an alien on like the third floor of this space, like way high up, and you can't quite reach it to shoot it, you can use a power called lift, different ability, and actually use lift on like a turret that will automatically detect the aliens, and the turret will then hover up to the ceiling and then automatically shoot the alien up there.
Ah, okay.
Weird little things you can do. But then more on the playful side, there's also like a glue gun. And you can, it's basically like, I forget how they even described it, but
It's like
you
a
can,
riot foam.
it's exactly it, that you can coat all the enemies with. But you can also use it, and they showed it in the video that they released, to like use it on a wall in like this diagonal line, and you can make a fake staircase for yourself using it.
Okay.
Or if you want to get weirder and wackier, you can just glue different objects in the world together and make a giant Katamari ball that you could then push around the environment. Cork, what are you into about this game?
Well, I like all the systems, and like you were mentioning, but I think the biggest thing that I like about it is just how cohesive the station Talos 1 feels. Like I think they've done a really good job of creating a space that feels plausible. Everything seems to kind of fit within the universe and the lore, which I'm not necessarily like the kind of person who reads every in-game book like in an Elder Scrolls game, but I do appreciate when, unlike like a Tomb Raider game where you go into a puzzle room and you realize this is like a one-shot deal. Like you can't possibly open this door more than one time because by the act of putting this tablet here, this pendulum swings and smashes through the wall, all this other stuff. So like with Prey, it seems like the designers have built a space that is populated by an appropriate number of people. You could, like, they point out that if you're really want to nerd out about it, you can go to like a security facility and you can find all the different tags for people, get those like beacons formed to figure out what happened to everyone before the alien infestation.
Track everybody down.
That kind of stuff. So I like that kind of world building because it seems like the station, they say it was approximately the same size as the Empire State Building. So it's like a
Right.
substantial space to explore, but it isn't like, here's Tamriel, go nuts. You know what I mean? It seems like it's small enough to where it will have diversity, but it will also feel crafted and not overwhelming, but everything kind of fits together. I think that's what I appreciate about it.
And the surrounding world is really bizarre too. A little bit like Dishonored, even less so than Dishonored though. It's like an like an alt history situation here, right? So in this version of the world, JFK was not assassinated.
Well, it starts out, the alternate history is that a Russian satellite got conked out, so they decided to send some cosmonauts up there to check out what happened, and then those guys were like attacked by these alien mimics. So then Khrushchev approached.
It was a bunch of guitars. They
A
just
bunch of
jumped
guitars,
on
like,
these.
what are these
cosmonauts.
guitars doing out
I
here?
gotta shred out on this keytar real quick. Vladimir.
But the basic idea is just a way to get like, okay, there's an alien threat. Now the world needs to come together rather than be divided.
Well, what happens is-
no, not so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
nice
You're-
try, Juba.
Yeah,
well, hey,
if you look
Wait,
at the
sit down.
if you're not watching the stream, Juba looks very chastened right now.
Yeah, oh, God.
He's beyond himself. He looks very embarrassed, bright red. As
All
he
his
should.
hair is falling out.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Khrushchev approaches Kennedy and says, "Hey, the space race is a lot of fun, but maybe we should work together." So what they do is they construct what they call a kletka, which is apparently Russian for cage, which is the only Russian word that I know now besides da. So
Yeah.
9.
doubled by vocabulary. So they built this like capsule around the original area and has the mimic in there. And then over the course of years, they've built like a space station, and that was subsequently privatized, and they've built like another layer. So they've built this like place where people work around this nightmare of an alien species that they're able to kind of exploit and get this technology called neuromods, which they use to enhance humans' abilities because of the weird properties of the aliens.
And nothing goes wrong.
nothing goes wrong ever.
right.
So it's just a sim of keeping this TranStar space station upright, keeping everything safe and
Oh, man.
sanitary.
It's
up
like
there.
before we tamed electricity and it would walk around and attack us.
I would totally play that game. Actually,
That'd be
it
really
was just
good,
like
actually.
that. Basically, has like the gun on the wall that never gets fired. Just like some sort of dangerous containment unit that is shoddily held together. But
Screenwriting 101.
yeah,
My favorite piece of this weird alt history, and it was just a little one-off from the creative director, but he's like, yeah, I like this version of history. Louis C.K. was president.
I think he was joking.
I think he was.
I double-checked with him. He said, yeah, sure. In our history, Louis
I think
C.K.
he was
yeah,
just
sure,
president.
sure,
really.
That's
sure, sir. Please stop talking about instruments and Louis C.K. We're
Yeah.
making a very sophisticated game here.
yeah. Just for future reference, shrug. I guess is not confirmation.
we'll
That's
see
all
that.
I need.
Louis C.K. is in the game for sure.
But I know some people were wondering because around E3, Chris Avalon, who used to be at Obsidian, RPG Raider over there, he tweeted that he was working on this game. There's a lot of confusion about what exactly was going on with that. So he just did a little bit of consulting, apparently. Like they brought him in relatively early, and the way they described it is he patched up some possible theoretical loopholes in the storyline and then did a couple side quests. And they explained they're like, hey, they're big fans of him too. They wanted to bring him on board and work with
He
him for a little
tweeted
bit.
about it at some point, right? When
Right,
the game was
yeah.
announced, he tweeted about it.
Yeah, I think he tweeted a picture of him
should
next
tell
to a
that
big
story.
face sign.
That's how you.
Yeah,
That
it's
should
a
be your
good
intro,
story.
right?
Yeah, it's really good.
Why didn't you start with that?
So, Cork, you had a feature go up on Friday.
Yes.
That was the 3 big mysteries
Yeah.
of Prey.
Yes.
Because the first trailer they unveiled at E3 was very confusing. It was all like a Groundhog Day style loop of things just
Edge of
getting worse.
Tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, all right. So, what do we know about the story and what don't we know?
Well, I think what we don't know is basically they're super cagey about some things that we almost asked as like a formality. So the main character's name is Morgan Yu,
Right.
Y-U. We were like, so do you hear Morgan's voice? And they're like, in a matter of speaking. We're like, what the hell does that mean? So yes, no, so maybe so. And
They were super cagey about Morgan to begin with. Like they wouldn't.
yeah,
say-
because that's the central
they wouldn't talk
mystery.
about their parents much. Like because your parents are mentioned in the game. I think they're famous scientists supposedly.
Maybe
One of them's Louis C.K.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Cork, but I was just saying, like, that was something they were super cagey about. And so you were saying that we straight up asked them, like, some pointed questions and they wouldn't divulge the information.
Because one of the big mysteries is, who you are, why you're on the space station, and they want to very much leave that for players. But then even there's the bizarre stuff of repeating the days in that trailer. And so you asked the obvious clone question.
Yes, are you indeed a clone? And he was like, no, you're not a clone, but there is something going on. So I was like, oh.
So we're on the right
So maybe
track
there's
there.
like some time tunnel that you're falling through, and like old versions of you come, so you're not technically a clone. But there are multiple versions of you.
In
Who
one of the
knows?
trailers,
alternate realities kind of thing.
Yeah, you
Bioshock.
certainly looks like you're talking to another version of yourself in one of those trailers.
Kind of a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
It's a
kind of
lot
thing.
like that. These are all common reference points. But I'm excited for this game. Like there's a survival layer coated on top, the trauma system. So you can get hurt in different ways. It reminds me a little bit of Metal Gear Solid 3, Joe, where it's not really in your face. But every once in a while, you're going to have to pick off some leeches. And in this one, you're going to have to go over to a 3D printer and print out a new med pack or some sort of healing apparatus
Get
to take care of
unburned.
yourself. Yeah, unburn yourself all over the place.
Well, that was another thing talking about systems is like they showed us this one section where there was like a locked door. It was kind of like cracked open or there's a crack in the wall or something. And you could see a med pack and it's like, you can eventually go and find a key and open that door. But you also have this like burst power that he set up behind the med pack and the burst happened and the med pack then kind of flew up towards the door and it was close enough where you could finally grab it.
Drawing from his experience from Donald Duck in Math Magic Land.
Yeah, that's right.
Complicated bank shot.
So I was just like, oh, that's a cool little thing. It's like they develop these systems and then, game players have the opportunity to sort of exploit or use them however they want. And it sounds like their QA department is constantly like mentioning like, hey, I think this is a bug. I'm not supposed to do this. And they're like, no, you can do that if you want. It's an interesting way to solve that problem, but that's up to you.
Yeah, like,
very Dishonored.
There was like one of the phantom enemies, I believe it was, like they lifted him into the air and it was like butting up against the ceiling. He stuck him there with a glue gun, and then eventually the glue wore off, and he just fell to his death. It's a game if you like kind of dicking around and doing weird stuff. Like it will support a lot of that.
Yeah, and we should mention the poltergeist going a little more in depth because that was one of the coolest things of the demo. Is it feels like a very cool Ghostbusters game, right? Because as part of this demo, you walk into this room and you just see like a little object shake. And so you just have to sit there quietly waiting to see what else is going to shake in the environment before this thing just picks up a chair and shucks it at your head.
And those poltergeists aren't always hostile is kind of what they were saying. It's like sometimes they just want to screw with you, like make you freak out a little bit, and then they might attack out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and also the idea that mimics can become anything in the environment. So at any point, there could be this jump scare if you're just walking down a hallway and suddenly a trash can just jumps at your throat, and like it transforms back into the alien creature. They say like it's not going to be constant monster closets because of that. Like it's going to be this roller coaster. There's going to be areas where there's fewer mimics, areas with more. But you can see even in the gameplay demo, like the characters running around with a wrench, like banging on everything, just losing their mind.
Is this real?
To make sure that they're not all mimics. Yeah, it's a cool, weird thing, and it's nice to see AAA production behind something so bizarre, even if it is going like the safe route of using the name Prey. Joe, basically, it's a imagine Tacoma, but with less of that talkie stuff and more weird physics playing around with different powers and guns.
Yeah,
we don't even know if they will be talking.
Gameplay wise, it sounds like a lot of fun to me. It's just that the name was the one thing that really makes me raise my eyebrow. But
I don't know if the Prey IP is like that negative a thing, honestly. Like I don't know if they're losing sales like you think they are, but
I think it adds to confusion for sure. It's certainly more of a hurdle than I expected. Just trying to talk about the game with the cover stories, people leaving those comments. Like,
and I was surprised that they're not at all really acknowledging the first game lore wise in some way. I thought they were going to do that. Like
that would make it even worse. I think honestly.
Well, now that I've seen it, yes, but like I thought before we went in that in some way they were going to acknowledge that, or some way a reboot, or the main character was going to be mentioned or something like that, but that's not the case.
I would be shocked if there's even an Easter egg like that.
No, they were saying that there's not going to be
okay.
They don't even want it. Like yes, if they played the original and people are just kind of like, yeah, I think so. who knows how much of that is like putting on airs, for our benefit. But
I wonder if
it doesn't seem like people are like, here's the deal. 10 years ago, I played Prey. And
Oh,
it's
man.
great to even be associated.
It's why
with
I'm a
it. They're
game
just like,
designer.
"Eh."
But hey, that's Prey. We have a whole month of features rolling out about it. Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can click right here if you want to subscribe and listen to the audio version of the full show. Full episodes air every Thursday, and they feature Game Informer editors sitting around talking about the biggest reviews, previews. We talk about exclusive impressions of Game Informer's cover stories. We have long-form developer interviews, everything that's great in gaming. So every Thursday, be sure to check it out.